Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Becoming a Professional. I'm your host, Rilley Ramos, and this week I'm pretty much recording in my backyard, so Virginia Beach. But to be more specific, I'm actually on location at the office of our special guest. But before we introduce him, let's go through our usual housekeeping. The episode is brought to you by the National Chapter of Beta Alpha Psi. So again, enormous appreciation for their support as always. Make sure to sign up for the Alumni Member Network if you haven't already done so, so we can easily connect and have y'all experience all the benefits that the network has to offer. So again, disclaimer, as always, the opinions in this podcast are our own and may not reflect the position of Beta Alpha Psi or our respective employers as a whole. So housekeeping, check.
Great.
Let's see. So on today's episode, we have a very special guest representing Big Four here in Virginia Beach. We have KPMG's office managing partner for the Southeastern Virginia area and inspiring over 160 team members under his leadership, Jason Kies, everyone. Did I say that right?
It's actually Jason Kies.
Kies.
Yes.
Okay.
I get it both ways a lot, but it's actually Kies.
Kies. I like that better. That's actually, Kies actually my son's name.
Oh,
so,
is it? Okay, yeah. Great.
So funny.
Well, now you'll remember it. It's easy.
So Jason Kies, everyone. And so Jason, pretty much to kind of like dive into it, we love to hear about our guest's origin story. So first off, where'd you go to school? What made you decide on your major?
Sure. No. So, first of all, thanks for having me. Glad to do it. I appreciate what you're doing for the profession and happy to talk to you today. So I'm a proud Hokie. I went to Virginia Tech for both my bachelor's and my master's in accounting. And I guess my inspiration for it was really my dad. He was an accountant, and I saw what he did growing up, though I didn't quite understand it all. But from a very young age, I said I wanted to be a CPA or an accountant, and that didn't change as I got into the coursework and that kind of thing. And it's been a great decision, so happy to be doing it.
So definitely the curriculum didn't weed you out or anything?
No. There was a moment or two of I was like, do I really want to do it? But then, yes, I stuck with it. Advanced accounting was a little challenging, but you get there. Okay.
Well, at least you knew what you were getting yourself
That's
into,
right.
like going into the curriculum and getting your degree. I know at least for me personally, I kind of learned about public accounting, like learn as you go. So I'm not going to lie, back when I was applying for my first internship I didn't understand the difference between public and private accounting.
Oh, okay.
So that was something that was a total shock. The only thing I had kind of going into it was my mom just telling me that as soon as I wanted to major in accounting, she was like, oh, CPA, just go for your CPA. And so that was kind of the one thing that I kind of carried with me throughout school.
Yep. Very, very important to get that designation. Not required, certainly, in private, but in public, absolutely necessary.
Oh, for sure. And I'm seeing all the doors open for my friends who are still in the practice and those who are making the transition. And it's definitely been a major leg up. And especially with there are companies nowadays that require a CPA license even to be a manager at their company. And that's usually the requirement within public accounting to go from senior to manager. But it's interesting to see that practice being implemented on the private side.
That is interesting. And you're right. It is a requirement to make manager or higher. Certainly in our firm, and I think the rest of the Big Four and other national firms are the same. I think, in the private, it probably is being driven by just that extra credential and proof that, you really have studied and you know what you're doing. It can't hurt. It can't hurt you at all. So
right. And then, so what were the initial stages of your professional career? What did that look like after college?
Sure. Well, I actually started in the profession while I was still in school. So I did fortunate enough to way back when, KPMG used to offer an externship program, which was you would work over winter break during your junior year, and you weren't paid. It was just kind of a trial period, and it was an entree into the internship, and that's what worked. And so I did a winter externship over the holiday break, my junior year, and it led to an internship offer at the end, and I took that. And back when I was doing it, was actually right at the transition point between the 150 hours or not. And I think when I graduated undergrad, which was 2002, you didn't have to have the 150 hour yet.
Okay.
But I think it was going to be required the following year. And so I made the decision to stay at Tech and get the master's degree, because different states at the time were accepting it at different times. And I thought if I ever get transferred, I don't want to be in a bad position. So I ended up doing two summer internships with the firm before I started full time. I believe I was the first one to do that nationally. So it turned out to be great. I've been here ever since. So I've been with the firm. If you count the winter externship, which was in the winter of 2000. Yep. So that would be, I've been here since 2000. So that's 24 years.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So KPMG lifer right here.
I'm a KPMG lifer. It's rare today, but
it is.
But I am.
That is. No, that's awesome. I love to hear that. It's like you said, it's definitely a rare breed, but it's really exciting to meet one when it comes up.
Yeah.
And so a bunch of my friends have KPMG experience under their belt. And even when I was speaking with some of the folks down in Atlanta who came up to visit, they would ask me about if I was a KPMG alum as well, just because I knew about what's the building that you guys have, the training program down in Florida?
Down in Orlando. It's called Lake House.
Lake House.
Yeah,
okay.
That's a facility we built several years ago. It's kind of our cultural hub.
Okay.
Many of the other Big Four have something similar. Ours is probably the newest because it was built to order, built to purpose, and we use that for most of all of our training facilities. We do host clients there from time to time.
Oh.
We have an ignition center down there. It's a great, really, to see how the connectivity of our people and the experience you get when they're, even as a partner, it's a really good place to go, and it kind of feels like you're going, not home, but a very familiar place, right? When you think about how it used to be, and you go to trainings at various hotels, very impersonable, just not warm and welcoming. This is a very opposite feel.
I like that. No, you definitely see that with other Big Four as well, but definitely being able to catch up with some of my KPMG folks and ask them how has it been at during their training seasons and whatnot. They're like, how do you know about that?
Yeah.
So it's fun.
It's great to go in the winter. It's a little tough in the summer, in the dead of August in Orlando.
Yeah, it's pretty humid. It's a little humid.
But February is a great time to go.
Okay. No, I believe it. Yeah, for sure. And then so pretty much you've been with KPMG for the entirety of your professional career. So you've been able to, specialize in something. And so private equity was one of the specialties that I kind of in talking with other KPMG partners that was one of the things under your belt was private equity.
Yes. Yeah, you're right, Riley. And so it's not uncommon in the firm to specialize in an industry, and you need to make that choice earlier on. For me, it was a little different, actually. If I look back at my career, I've had a couple different specialties throughout the career. I started, in the audit practice in Richmond, Virginia, when I was an intern, and then full-time hire. And I kind of mostly worked on insurance companies, large public insurance companies. And I had the opportunity after about 4.5 years to go on rotation to Zurich, Switzerland. Okay. And that was a fantastic experience. I accepted that and did that. And there, it was a little bit more, I was an SEC, US GAAP, US gas expert in less of an individual industry. And after my 4 years were there, the firm moved me to New York, and that's when I joined private equity. So that was in 2011.
Okay.
I joined our private equity practice. A bit of a leap of faith, to be honest with you. I'd never worked in private equity. I didn't know it. But the managing partner I used to work for in Richmond was a senior partner in the private equity group. He'd moved over and was leading one of the largest PE accounts in the firm. And had called while I was, thinking about what to do after Switzerland, and said, hey, would you come and join? Would you, one, not go back to Richmond and come to New York? Number one. Number two, would you join the private equity practice? And I trusted him. I'd worked with him. And I said yes. And that was a great decision. And I like the industry. I made partner in that, industry, serving in that role. So it was a very good decision. And I've been in the PE group. That's the kind of, if you bifurcate my roles, I've got my global lead partner hat in private equity, and then I've also got my managing partner role. But I've been in our private equity group since 2011.
Okay, and mentioning the global lead partner role, what is it like serving as that for KPMG's private equity practice?
Yeah, so our role, my role is a little bit different in the traditional sense, right? I don't deliver anymore like most people think of. I don't have chargeable hours or that kind of thing. My job as a global lead partner is really to be that in its purest sense. So I'm ultimately responsible for everything the firm does at the PE clients I oversee, which they're large. I can't name them, but they're three very large ones you would know in the press quite often. And I'm responsible for everything the firm does at the fund level or any of the portfolio companies.
Okay.
And so really I've got a tremendous amount of teams underneath of me providing audit, tax, and or advisory services at the fund or the portfolio companies. And I just need to make sure they're doing a good job. We're responding to opportunities, solving any issues that may arise, all of those kind of things. So every day is a little bit different. There's probably 10 or 15 different hats I have to wear in that role. But it's an exciting role, and it's a very fun role, and one I kind of was hoping to aspire to early on.
Okay. And then for our listeners who are kind of earlier in their college career or just trying to decide on a specialty, for those who are early in their professional career, I guess, what is private equity?
Sure. So private equity in its pure sense is taking private capital, so think other people's money, could be your own, but typically private equity firms will raise money from large institutional investors, think pension funds, insurance companies, high net worth individuals, those kind of things. And they'll pull that money into a fund, and they'll deploy that capital, also using leverage, to buy other companies. And they'll hold them typically for, call it 4 to 7 years. And then they'll sell them, or they could IPO them as well. It's one of the two options. And then they'll take that return. Usually it's a pretty good sized profit. And they distribute some of that the private equity firm keeps. And then the rest of it they distribute to the investors. They're LPs. They're called limited partners or LPs. So they divide the profits up between the fund itself, which would be the employees and the owners of the fund, and the limited partners.
Okay, so then how is private equity, I guess, what's the difference between private equity and venture capital? So I'm assuming like venture capital, that's more like your Shark Tank folks.
Yes. Very similar concept. And in fact, some of the venture capital funds are structured very similarly. The main difference is probably the stage of company that is invested in. And so in venture capital, you're more looking at early stage, think tech or high growth early on. Private equity, a bit more mature type company, maybe been around, maybe needs to restructure a bit, or maybe needs some additional capital to do some expansion, that kind of thing. And that's really the difference. It's probably the maturity and the size of the company.
Okay, gotcha. And then as far as like for private equity, for those who are, I guess, looking into the big names in private equity, you got like your not knowing any of your clients. But that's kind of like your Blackstones, your KKRs, to name a couple. And then at least for me, working in the real estate scene, I guess the way that I kind of comprehend is that for us, being in a real estate investment company, that we essentially buy an apartment complex, hold on to it for 4 to 7 years, and then position it to sell for, I guess the gains would go towards our investors.
That's exactly right. And you're exactly right, Riley, in terms of private equity has actually evolved even before, even when I first got into it, servicing them, that is. It used to be, I think, back in probably the 80s, it was exactly what I described. They used, maybe sometimes you call it leverage buyouts, but they took the private capital and they bought a company, they did some things to it, and they sold it. Now, private equity are really diversified investors. You usually have a private equity arm. Like we'll use your Blackstone and KKR and Carlyle as examples, right? Most of them have a private equity arm, a real estate arm, a credit arm.
Okay, so really
right, and so it's really diversified in the types of assets that they will deploy and purchase.
Interesting. Okay, and then so when it comes to the private equity side, that's for your more mature businesses.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay, and then that's kind of one of the hats that you wear is like the global lead partners working with those clients.
That's right.
And then so kind of switching over to your journey as managing partner, I guess what has that been like? Because obviously you've been with the firm for so long that you're moving up the ladder. But what kind of like led you to make that decision that, okay, it's not only at one point I want to be partner, but now I want to actually take a next step after that. So what has that journey been like?
It's a great question. So, being a managing partner was certainly a goal of mine as well. And I would love to continue to advance in my career and take on different challenges. That's really what it is. But the managing partner role, as we think of it, it's really a couple of things you need to focus on, right? You need to focus on the market and expanding what the firm does, and that included existing clients and getting new clients, right? So that's the market side. And in some respects, you're kind of looked at as the face of the firm in that market as the managing partner. On the people side, right, you're kind of the face of the firm to the employees, right? And to other partners, you're kind of the point person to raise issues and run the office and run the region and solve problems and also help our people grow, right? One of the things that I think is most exciting, equally as much as winning new work, is watching our people grow and giving them opportunities like I had. You know, we have an employee who knew I did a rotation and came to talk to me about it, and happy to report he's going to be going abroad as well this spring.
Okay.
And so you see things like that, or you see people who maybe needed a little extra push or a little bit more guidance to get promoted, and then they get over the hump, and you see them advancing in their career. That's part of the job as well, right? And then, of course, you have the administrative side, got to run the budget for the office. You got to, plan certain external client events, certain internal events. So it's a multifaceted role, but I found it to be very, very enjoyable and one I truly love doing, and was happy to do it and accepted, yes, to move back to Virginia to do it.
Right. And then as far as like the journey of like getting to where you're at now, what types of like leadership skills in particular did you feel that were necessary in order to be in the position that you are?
Yeah, it's a good question. So first and foremost, right, you have to have a proven track record of being able to deliver on your clients and whatever that means, right? So, right, if you think back to the very beginning as an audit associate, you need to perform well and deliver to make senior and then to make manager. It's no different when you make partner. You have to have a demonstration of you can deliver, you can solve problems, and you can win work to make partner, right? So to make managing partner, I think it's looking at people who are able to be proactive in the marketplace, number one, right? That's a huge part of the role. But then as I talked about on the people side, a record of being both empathetic and sympathetic to your employees around what are their goals and how do you help them achieve them? Because not everybody's career is going to be the same. Not everybody wants the same things. You need to have a track record of, showing you have hard work and dedication, but you can solve problems. And you also need to be fairly well connected. So having different experiences in the firm, right? It's no right or wrong answer. Some people stay in one office their entire career and have a wonderful career. Other people have moved around like I have, and that connectivity, I think, helped get me into the role I'm in, right? Okay. You know a lot more people. You can solve problems a little bit faster. But contrast that with someone who's in one office their whole career. They are deeply ingrained in that office and in that marketplace. Both are right answers. But at its core, you need to be able to have a good personality, proven leadership ability to solve problems, be an advocate for people and your clients and targets.
No, I love that. I couldn't have said it any better, especially like being in touch with your employees and those. And I believe that's one of the key facets of effective leadership is knowing the people that are working under you. So I really appreciate hearing that.
No, absolutely. In fact, I'd say everybody does something different. And every once in a while, I'll ask the team that works for me, just because you want to get a pulse on that, right? Because life changes. Some people get married, some people have children, and that can change some of how they work and some of their priorities.
Right.
And so on a periodic basis, I do kind of go over with people that work directly with me, how do you like to be communicated with? How do you not like to be communicated with? What hours may be off limits? What are your goals? What can I do to help you? So you need to keep a pulse on that kind of thing if you're going to be effective.
Right.
If you don't, it's just your perception, and that's kind of in a vacuum, and that's not very good.
Right. Well, and especially like with, not to go off topic or anything, but like with the pipeline issue with the industry now,
Yeah.
I feel like that's important more now than ever.
Absolutely. If the pipeline issue is a real issue, and you have to think about why aren't people going into it. Some of it's the 150 hours. Some of it is cost. Some of it is, frankly, I don't think the profession did a very good PR job about what it is we do. There's still this kind of view of accountants or bean counters, or we wear green visors, running around, right? That couldn't be more further from the truth.
Right. Right.
You do a lot of very cool things. I've gotten to travel the world because of being an accountant, right? And so you kind of have to sell the types of experiences and the types of things you can get involved with, whether it's transactions or, financial statements or strategy, whatever it may be. You can do a lot of very cool things being an accountant or with a public accounting firm that I don't think college students totally realize.
Right. Right. Which I feel like even just kind of like going full circle with your experience from where you started, having like that externship, and then with the internships, you kind of get a glimpse of that world, but just like kind of like dipping your toe into it. But once you're in it and you're getting to do like the special projects, I remember when I was a staff and a partner pulled me into a special project. I think I was in the office kind of late, just trying to finish up a project, and he saw me there just doing my thing, and he was like, "Hey, come over here. I need your help for this analysis that we're doing." And so he told me about the project, and I was like, which had nothing to do with debits or credits, nothing to do with financials, but really just to read this client's contract and pretty much, does the math make sense? Like if you were to prove it out, just not knowing any background information on what the client does, but just, does this make sense? And I had to pretty much go back into like my grade school roots of like coming up with this equation of like some formula, and something that they don't even teach you in accounting. And it was really interesting project that I got to like take ownership of. Yeah. And so that was one of like, I guess, my core memories, being in public and seeing that partner, excuse me, seeing that partner take me under his wing and kind of show me like, these are the more interesting things that we do aside from your like compliance or general testing.
Absolutely. I'd say another way to think about it is every day is going to be a little different. Even if you are kind of in audit or tax and you're delivering to clients, things are going to pop up every week that are going to be different. And how you deal with that will further help you in your career, but it also provides some variety, right? And makes the job exciting and different. And so I think that's another selling point, right? That, again, not to be off topic, but when we sell it to college students, to think about, and that you get a variety and it's not going to be a repetitive thing year in, year out, right? The end goal may be, but how you get there is going to be different.
Yeah. So, I highly encourage our listeners to find those opportunities, whether it's your initial opportunities like externships, internships. It's Big Four, KPMG, they're all about their internships. And then, so to kind of like bring things back in, for as managing partner responsibilities, you wear so many different hats, and I guess what is that like difference between partner and managing partner? I know you probably mentioned that not necessarily client specific, but more so managing the office as a whole.
Sure. So, if I think about how I work with my fellow partners, right, what's the difference? The truth is we're doing all something similar. We're all working on clients. We're all in the marketplace. And I'm more about the team, right? I couldn't do this without the team. It's not about being one person. You're really the person kind of setting the direction and the tone on behalf of the firm, right? We have a firm-wide strategy, but then your job is to kind of help implement that locally and adapt if needed, but really get the other partners and employees to buy in and adapt it to the local marketplace with what works. So if I think about how I work with my partners, it's great to team with them on opportunities and provide that senior level of expertise to say, hey, look, I'm fully behind this person. We're going to give you great service, or we're going to solve this problem. I'd say that's one thing. If a problem arises that a partner can't solve, usually I get that phone call, right? It's like, hey, I want to talk to someone else, and then you try to make it work and see what you can do. So that's really one of the bigger differences. And I think then the budgetary aspect, right? There are just certain things that come with the running an office. You kind of get a first look at promotions and what the business cases are and that kind of thing that not every partner is going to see on a day-to-day basis. Or you get a first look at certain strategy things and that kind of stuff. And so those are some of the bigger differences. Probably information earlier, insight into more some of the mechanics and some of the details that may be available to everybody else, and an opportunity to weigh in as well. Okay. I'd say, which is great. We have the firm's very good about that. We have a monthly all managing partner call. So all the managing partners around the firm will get together once a month.
Okay.
Roughly once every 4 to 6 weeks, and just kind of share notes, have a discussion. It's led by one of our vice chairs, and that's your forum to raise issues that you may be commonplace amongst the offices, or ask clarifying questions maybe of certain things being rolled out, or be an advocate for your people in your office as well. So that's kind of one of the differences. Not that it would be inefficient to we have about 2,200, 2,300 partners. You're not going to do that once a month with 2,300 partners, right? And so
that's a planning nightmare.
That's a planning nightmare. So inefficient. You'd never get off. Everyone would have a viewpoint. So part of my job is to aggregate that and then give that feedback up as well.
Okay. And that's with the national office, or kind of?
It's usually more so the national office is different. The national office is, from an audit perspective or tax perspective, it's probably more your technical experts that provide expertise on audit questions, methodology questions, tax questions. And we have national offices both in audit and tax.
Okay. Separate?
Yeah, they're separate. When we talk about my national would be kind of the management committee. Right, that's ultimately
so a separate committee. Gotcha.
Yeah, the management committee of the firm, and every firm is structured similarly but slightly different. Usually, there's heads of function. So think in our structure, that's vice chair of audit, vice chair of tax, vice chair of advisory, vice chair legal, so forth and so on. You have a CEO and a deputy CEO. So there's a management committee. That's who we consider runs the firm. Okay. And then they look at managing partners and industry leaders and service line leaders within advisory as kind of the lieutenants to then be in the field and doing things. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. And then, so, I mean, there's that structure of leadership from a business aspect, and then kind of to take a 180. Now, for Beta Alpha Psi, community service is one of the pillars of our organization. Yep. And so when it comes to giving back to the community, I mean, for me, I served on the board of directors for Beta Alpha Psi, so for our national chapter, and that's how I was able to kind of create this is my passion project, the podcast. I was able to create that through my term on the board, and so for you to be on I mean, you're on various board positions, and so what has that experience been like? How did you get into the board positions?
So first of all, congratulations on your passion project. I think you do a good job, and glad you were able to do it. You're right. Community service is important, not only to me personally, but it's important to the firm, right? Firm wide, we give out a tremendous amount of money across a wide variety of charities, and most of our partners serve on various community boards. Okay. Not for profits or community type foundations, and we encourage our people to do too. So as you said, I'm no different. I serve on probably, I don't know the exact count, but 6 or 7 boards at this time. And some of them are really not-for-profit focused. Some are more business oriented. It depends.
So your corporate boards?
No, can't do a corporate board. That would be against the rule. More like
good to know.
Affiliation type board. So like a chamber of commerce kind of thing, right?
Oh, I see. Okay.
But the community service aspect, that is important. And one, the firm highly encourages its partners and employees to do it. And I first got involved when I was in New York. I was a senior manager, and one of my personal passions is travel. And I became aware of an organization just through networking that had a young professionals board. So being younger in your career, but that was kind of like prepping you to be on their board later on, their governing board. And I was asked to join, and that was my first foray into it. And it was about educating elementary and middle school kids about the world and global travel and that kind of thing. And I loved it. I thought it was a fantastic experience. And so as I made partner, I looked for other opportunities. Some come to you. It's not uncommon to be reached out to, and you have to think about what do you actually care about? Because if you don't care about the organization or the cause, being on the board or involved isn't really going to do anybody any good, right? You're not going to be invested in it, so to speak. So you need to find one that you like and are passionate about, or at least have an interest in. And then you can serve in either a board capacity or a volunteer capacity. So we really do a lot. I can tell you from an office perspective, we give to, I think it's close to 50 organizations a year financially.
Okay.
And locally, I've gotten partner buy-in that every partner in our office serves on at least 2 boards, and the average is actually closer to 3 or 4.
Okay.
So again, we take it very seriously and think it's part of being a good steward in the community and a part of the fabric of the community.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it definitely is one of those things that, I mean, yes, we're for the most part, everybody's focused on their career, their professional career, but it's always important to always have that in the back of your mind, like the importance of giving back and like, kind of like remember where you started and be
That's
able
right.
to like excel or to bring those up, those around you up as well. So I feel like community has always been a very big thing for me personally, and so it's really cool to see an organization have such an emphasis on community as well. And I remember back when I was at ODU for my undergrad, we would do volunteer projects with KPMG, like the Clean the Bay.
That's right.
That was kind of like the yearly thing that our chapter did with y'all. So it was always a good time.
Yeah, we actually, Riley, we have a annual community service day.
Oh,
so
okay.
every August, the whole firm shuts down for the day to go out and perform community service.
I like that. That's cool.
And that's been going on for several years. I think we started it around our 125th anniversary or something like that, and we've been doing it ever since. So, people get into it. We also have internal affinity groups that can do that throughout the year.
Interesting.
So think about, they volunteer various capacities, whether it's environmental or social, whatever. People getting involved in that stuff throughout the year.
Gotcha. Okay. So KPMG, there's definitely opportunities for
Absolutely
for those who are very passionate about
Absolutely.
it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so before we close things off, I got one more question for you.
Sure.
What is one piece of advice you would give to your younger self when starting your career?
Oh, that's a good question. It'd probably be a couple things. I don't know if I can just do it with just one. I'd say
You can do a couple. You can do a few.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I'd say, don't worry as much. Things will work out, right? And it's usually not as bad as you think it may be in a given situation. And, that the dedication and hard work will pay off, right? And so keep it in perspective, though, and keep in mind what's important, right? We don't save lives, right? And so you have to really balance without burnout. And that'd be kind of the advice I give. And the other one would be, frankly, and I would tell this to anybody, right? And I did it, but I would tell it to the audience today. Take advantage of opportunities presented, because you're going to be better for it, both professionally and personally. Even if you have some hesitation about it. Like I'll go back to my Switzerland example. I was a little uncertain at first, and it's a little daunting to think about, originally it was to go for 2 years. You think, oh my goodness, 2 years to move across the world when you don't speak the language or know anybody.
Yeah.
I would not be where I am today, no question about it, if I hadn't done it. And in fact, I could probably trace where I am today to to no more than 3 or 4 critical decisions of saying yes. So it's say yes to opportunities.
No, I completely agree with that. I mean, it's definitely one of those things that kind of like, I think back to my time at in school and kind of like taking on those additional leadership roles, or just the faculty advisors. I mean, they're the ones that are kind of the glue from year to year, seeing the students, the next crop of students come in. And so usually the students are hesitant about taking on leadership roles, that it's like, oh, that seems like a lot. And then, but the faculty advisors will kind of go out of their way and see like, hey, I see potential in you.
Yeah.
I think this would be a really good opportunity for you. And so that's how, honestly, I was able to work my way up from candidate to member to secretary, president, and then the board positions.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, Riley. It's you need advocates in your career, and you need mentors in your career. Mm-hmm. So, while I didn't mention it, that's another area where seek out those people. Seek out people who can kind of push you and give you that encouragement and say, I think you can do this, even though you don't think you can yourself. That's hugely important as well.
Agreed. But so, I mean, we can definitely sit here all day and talk about leadership and community service, but that's unfortunately all the time that we have.
Okay.
And so, Jason, thank you so much for being our special guest on the podcast. It was such a pleasure to hear about your story. And I mean, that's really cool about your experience with Switzerland and all that. And so just to see how that's kind of like impacted you now, it's really cool to hear.
Sure. No, look, my pleasure. I appreciate you having me today. It's been fun. That went by very quickly. I can't believe how fast that went. So, look, I'm appreciative for you having me on, and happy to talk again if ever. And I wish everybody listening, good luck in your careers. And it's a fun journey. So enjoy it.
Perfect. And then to our listeners, thank you again for tuning into this week's episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us from whatever platform you're tuning in from. Also, check out the show notes for our various social media pages and official BAP swag. Once again, thank you, Jason. And with that, we'll see you on the next episode of Becoming a Professional. Hey everyone, Riley here with the credits. This episode, titled Leading the Charge, Experiences from KPMG's Global Lead Partner, was hosted and produced by myself, Riley Ramos, and accompanied by our special guest, Jason Kies. Music was sourced from Resolute Audio and Fine Tune Music on Adobe Stock. If you haven't already, please join the Alumni Member Network. Details can be found in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode of Becoming a Professional.